Well, best ever listeners, how you doing? Welcome to the best ever AI how-to show. So much of the talk around AI is just that talk. What is conceptually possible? All the good or scary stuff that AI has the capabilities of doing, but not a lot of conversation is about how to actually do some of these things. The good stuff, not the scary stuff. And with us today, we have an expert in AI, Mike Montague. How you doing, Mike?
Good. I'm excited to be here. And I love any, nerdy conversation about AI. So I'm in.
Uh, I not only do I nerd out on AI, I also nerd out on chess. So I'm full nerd mode right now, and looking forward to our conversation. Mike is from Newburyport, Massachusetts. He's the founder of Avenue 9, and he's worked with lots of companies, big old brands, LinkedIn, Uber, Zoom, and others. He's authored two books, and one of them, LinkedIn, The Sandler Way, and Playful Humans. And he's got a lot of podcasts too, a lot of downloads. So he's got a background in AI, and here's what he's going to talk about today, which is and show us today, most importantly, and that is to how to create a month's worth of content based on one conversation using AI. So if you are interested in creating a month's worth of content using one conversation via AI, then here's where we're at. So with that, Mike, first off, before you get into it, would you mind giving a quick background on yourself and your area of focus right now?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it is there's kind of been two threads throughout my whole career. Ever since I was a little kid, my mom won a computer on a radio station contest in like 1986, an Apple IIc computer. And those are actually the two things. So I was on the radio in my 20s. I've been an entertainer, public speaker, sales trainer, podcaster, general content marketer, community engagement person most of my career. Because in high school and college, when you're deciding what you want to do for a living, I was like, I don't want to be a nerd. I don't want to sit behind a computer all day in a room by myself. I want to be cool. I want to be on the radio. I want to be in front of people on stages. And it turns out, every job is sitting in a room by yourself behind a computer these days. And the nerd tech AI tools actually help that too. So I learned how to program that computer, which led me into designing websites. I did that for over 200 websites, and then got into internet broadcasting and podcasting when I put the Kansas City Chiefs game online for the first time in the 2000s, broadcast them over the internet. And that was a really cool opportunity, which led me into social media and now into the AI trend. And so when you weave all those two things together, vacillate or go between entertainment conversations and then internet marketing content and technical skills. So we're going to talk about both today, because if you want good marketing, you need both. You need the story, but you also need the scalable AI systems to make sure that story gets everywhere it needs to be in every format available these days. Does that make sense?
Well, I like being entertained while I learn. So it sounds like you're the perfect guy to have this conversation with.
We'll see how entertaining an AI tutorial is, but I'll do my best. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, a month's worth of content based on one conversation. How do you want to approach this? You want to share your screen?
Yeah, I'll share my screen, and I'll start with actually just a blog on my website, which is not particularly an interesting way to start a podcast, but I wrote these steps that I think everybody needs to see, and then we'll walk through how to actually do them. All right. So this was my blog post on how to stop wasting ChatGPT and get 9 times the effort out here. And we're going to walk through these steps in what I do today and what I do for my clients and stuff at Avenue 9. And this is how you build a month's worth of marketing from one conversation. First, you got to start with a good conversation. A podcast like this, when I work with clients, I'll interview their founder, their top salesperson, their best client, sometimes partners and vendors. And we just start by collecting all of this information in an interview. Depending on what you want the output to be, I like a video interview. Zoom is just fine. It's got an AI transcription and call recorder. You can share the screen like we're doing here. You can have an easy conversation between one or multiple people. And when we create this long format thing, it sets us up for what I call degenerative AI. So everybody thinks about generative AI, like I'm going to take this one sentence prompt and I'm going to turn it into a month's worth of marketing. Well, that's a really bad way to get bad marketing because you're only giving it one sentence worth of context and then you're asking it to create pages and pages of stuff. But if we take pages and pages of an interview and a conversation we had, and then we ask it to whittle it down into a really cool tweet or a LinkedIn post or something else, then we can create some cool stuff. So this is kind of part two, is we use AI to take the transcript and synthesize all of that stuff. Then if we've done our work and told AI about who we are and what we do, we can multiply the format. So we can create sales pitches in a minute. I'll show you that. Onboarding materials, social posts, email campaigns, images, podcasts, training modules, anything that we need. And we get better at this. We can set up a system where we can have some of these things automated. And we'll see how detailed we can go today. But first, I'll show you kind of what it looks like. And then we'll go through and talk about how to set these up in a repeatable system. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, so make sure you have enough the volume of content that's needed to actually create a month's worth. Don't just give it a couple sentences or a couple prompts and let it go wild.
Yeah, and if you need help stretching that out, AI is really good at that too. So it happens to be in my expertise in radio and being a podcast interviewer for 20 years. We can ask some questions and we can go in deep, and I know kind of how to drive until I get to the meat of an issue. But if you don't, just go and ask ChatGPT. Type in the question. We can do it now here too, and just say, like, if I was going to interview the founder of a commercial real estate firm, what are the top 5 questions I should ask him about how he does his business in order to create a great blog post? And I'm using Whisper AI there to just dictate all of this in there, but I can just ask ChatGPT and it's going to say, okay, what's their origin story? What inspired you to start the firm? What philosophy guides the way you do business? How do you build trust with clients and ensure you're creating long-term value than just, closing one deal and moving on?
So
what
how
do you see as the biggest challenges?
Quick, the Whisper AI, you're talking to me, but yet somehow it picked up on that. So educate me, would you, on how that worked?
Yeah, Whisper is a really cool tool. It's not spelled like you would think at all. It's WISPR. So we have no E and no silent H. But I just push 2 keys on my keyboard. So it's a keyboard shortcut that turns on the microphone and then dictates whatever I say. And I love Whisper because it does better than any of the computer things. And I can use it while I'm using other apps and stuff like that. It'll even do formats. So if I do correct myself in a sentence, or if I use somebody's name and it sees the context on the screen of like a podcast guest name, it will spell it correctly and everything. So it's got a really cool AI built into the dictation, which saves me a crap ton of time.
So what's the primary use case for that for you?
Really, I'm just saving myself from carpal tunnel. Sometimes I'll get longer prompts or I'll ask AI to clarify stuff. So if you don't do this, one of my favorite prompts for ChatGPT is ask me some questions about this blog post to make it even better. So I could just say something here like, those are great, but ask me some questions about the situation and context in order to make these questions even more specific and more valuable. So when I pop that in there, now I'm asking ChatGPT to ask me questions about the questions I wanted to ask, and it's going to ask me these things. So now instead of typing all of this back, because it's going to give me another 5 things, I can just dictate in here with Whisper and say, okay, this is, office industrial, it's regional, it's local. It's more about the founder's offerings than it is their personal background. And I can just dictate in all
Why not just click the microphone ChatGPT and do the same thing?
It does do that. It's not as good. I found more errors in it. And also, if you do this one over here using voice mode, then it starts talking back to you and I can read faster than
right.
listen. So what I don't like is when it starts reading all of this back and like, I can skim the question. Stop it. I got to go back to that.
Yeah.
This one does work. Like I said, Whisper is just a little bit better and it allows me to go into other tools. So when we talk about going in to create a PowerPoint presentation or something, now I don't have that microphone. So in ChatGPT,
okay,
there's better, but just throughout my day, I get used to.
You could use it everywhere.
Talking and using it everywhere, which is great. So now we've got our questions. We go and we do the interview. We record the interview on Zoom and we get the transcript. I'm going to start a new chat here, and you can create projects if you want to keep all of this information in one area, which I think is really cool. Have you ever done a ChatGPT project?
I have.
Yeah. So most of the time I don't. You can see these are guests that I've had on my podcast before. I'll just create everything in one thread is a little bit easier. So let's go ahead and keep it. I'm going to start a new chat because my context is going to be different for my thing. And that's one of the tips that I think people need to know is the AI only has so big of a context window for what you're doing. And so you need to kind of keep these things separate or it'll get mixed up and confused, just like an employee would. If you gave an employee 5 different tasks at the same time, they're going to pick and choose which ones they do right. They're going to mix them together. They're going to use the information from one and the other, and it's going to get all messed up. So I try to keep it clean. I've also in here created custom instructions in my ChatGPT about how I want it to respond to me. So I can add in here, hey, I want it to be witty, forward thinking, or I want it to be chatty, and here's what I do and what I want. And so you need to fill in these custom instructions so that it generates the output that you want. You can also create custom GPTs, which is basically the same thing, but you can upload files to it with those custom instructions and say, hey, here's an example of what I think a great blog post is or a great email, and I can upload those files from it. But let's start with this conversation. So I was on the Rocky Mountain Marketing podcast last week, and I have the transcript from that. So we're just going to use that as our interview. But again, it could be a sales conversation. It could be anything that's a long form. It could be a webinar that you recently did. It doesn't matter as long as it's about a 20-minute conversation or so. Sometimes it works even less. I'll just jump on with somebody and say, hey, Joe, I heard you had a great idea for a blog post. Tell me about it. And then I'll ask a couple of questions. We'll record it in Zoom, and then we'll get rolling. From here, I like to start with the title. So I try to think about what's one good sentence. This is the scalable story we're going to stretch out. So I'll say something like, can you give me 10 ideas for the title of this podcast? Attached is an interview recording transcript from Mike on a podcast. What would be the best titles to use for this conversation? Now, that's not the best I've ever done transcribing and stating that question, but I actually save these in a prompt format too. And my team has all of these questions, so we can just copy and paste them each time. But now you can see I get, 10 great title examples of what I talk about on a regular basis. So how to scale your marketing without losing trust is great. From ChatGPT to Gamma, which is what we're talking about today, 9 tools every small business should know. That's a pretty good one. I think I'm going to stick with the first one here. So I'll say, let's go with number 1, human first AI marketing, how to scale without losing trust. And can you write a short description of what this podcast would be with that title? And so now I'm stretching it out a little bit. And I go, okay, here is what that blog post or that next piece of content would be about. AI is moving fast. Trust takes time. And this episode, Mike talks about how small business owners can use scalability. Great. All that's great. Now I'm going to make it longer and say, can you give me an outline for a blog post based on the top takeaways shared in the transcript with that title? And I'm stretching this out even further, and I make sure each one goes along, and I will go in and edit these if I don't like any of these. So I'll kind of review what's going through here. And for this purposes, to keep things moving, I'll just kind of say that this is good. But here you can see it's pulled out the top AI tools that I mentioned. Here's my Iron Man versus Terminator. Here's the stuff. Great. And we'll get to the end. Let's say, perfect.
So far, you're
blog
getting
post in less than 1,000 words for the Avenue 9 company blog. And what I'm trying to demonstrate here is I actually give it more context than I need to. I kind of continue to remind that I want you to use this title. I want you to write it in my voice, which I didn't say this time. Let's say in the style of Mike Montague, in less than 1,000 words for the company blog. Now I've given it 3 criteria to whittle it down to get better stuff. Again, what a lot of people say is, hey, I want to write a blog post about human first AI marketing and how to scale your trust. Ready, go. And they jumped all these other steps of getting the context, teaching it about the company, teaching it about our audience, teaching it about my writing style and who my company serves. And now I get this great piece. So it's going to take a little while to build out these. We can talk about where to go from here.
It's interesting. Yeah, so you're, as you said, you're building it. You're not just trying to create it immediately. You are taking the steps of building it in a sequence that just gives it more context along the way.
Yeah. So especially a big one people miss is the call to action. So you can see here, I've already built it in. I've taught what I wanted it, my call to action to be. So it says, hey, if you'd like my curated list of tools, go to avenue9.com/tools. If you don't teach it that, there's no way it's going to pull that out of the generic stuff. So
when did you teach it that? Like where did you teach it that?
A lot of different
places.
Most of this comes from previous ones that I've done.
Okay.
And I mentioned that call to action in the podcast transcript. So again, if we didn't have that, that's where it wouldn't have pulled from that. But I do set up my podcast interviews. I usually remind it again. I'm surprised that I forgot that time to say, hey, I want the call to action to be follow the podcast on YouTube or your favorite app. Or I want the call to action to be take the AI readiness quiz at avenue9.com/quiz. And I'll have these built in call to actions that I repeat or where I want people to go. That's a key part of getting great stuff. Now let's switch it up. And I think this is the easy part. So from here, Joe, we could ask it to write a ton of stuff. I can say it's already asking me who usually I do next a LinkedIn post version. So I'll say, write a LinkedIn article, write a shorter one, give me ideas for, video clips or pull quotes from this that I could use on Twitter that is less than 140 characters. I can start asking for a lot of different stuff. The harder ones I think are images. So there's a couple of ways to do this. I'm going to ask it to create a blog thumbnail image for this and stick with our blog. So can you create a AI description prompt for a blog post image about this blog that does not contain any words or symbols? Try and start there. So what I found works better is to actually take this prompt into a tool like Gamma or something else to make my image, because it has more options, but also just say it'll make multiple variants. So
okay.
Can you actually make the image right now based on that prompt? So I'll send one here and we'll see what it makes. It's going to think and it's going to generate that image. That'll take a while. So while we're doing that, I can also go to a tool. Gamma is one of my favorites. It's $20 a month. It has AI images, creates presentations, and you can see some of the stuff that I've made here already, but I can just copy that prompt, put it in here, and I can pick what style I want with my brand. And I can even add some other stuff. But in here, in the models, I can choose all these different image models. So for $20 a month, I don't want to use ChatGPT image because I'm already doing that over there. But I'm going to use Google's Imagine 4, and I want it in a landscape portion. And just for fun, let's do something other than photorealistic. Let's do like an abstract or illustration. Let's do illustration. It's going to give me 3 options for this blog post. So I go back. That one's working. This one's working.
Do you know which one to which service or what platform to use? Obviously not ChatGPT because you got that running on the other side, but you picked I think you said the Google one.
Yeah, I've tested these a lot, so that's just experience. It depends on what I'm trying to create. Flux does okay. You can kind of see which ones are better. Like it'll show you whether they use images, photorealistic or stuff. I've tried a bunch of these. Some of them are cheaper. ChatGPT image is the best for me right now, and Google's Imagine are getting me the best results, especially for photorealistic stuff. Some of these, kind of tell you better for artistic styles, better with hands, better with text. They're all just kind of a little bit.
Okay.
So it depends on what I'm making. In general, I would say ChatGPT is fine. Even if you don't want to buy another tool, just go with that and see what it generated here. Here's what it generated. Here's what Google generated over here. Pretty much the same. These are the Iron Man analogies that I used in my blog post that we were talking about. And not bad. So you can click and download that and save it. Or I could put it into, a lot of times what I do is put it into Gamma here, and then I'll add my text over it. So rather than trying to make text in the image, what I did was I uploaded the image to this, or you can put it in a PowerPoint or something, and then you just write the title yourself and put Mike Montague into it. So I'll go ahead and do it since we're showing people on this podcast. I love your podcast. I'm going to save it to my desktop there. I'm going to upload the image over here, take the podcast title we had as well, and just copy. And you can see like all of this goes pretty fast. I'm trying to talk and do it at the same time, but all of a sudden I got a nice blog thumbnail image that I can use without very much time at all. And it's original. I didn't have to buy artwork or anything. And it's all contextual to me and what I'm trying to do. So then I can just export this to PNG file and save it back. And I got my thumbnail image. And I can add my logo to this. I can create that design and stuff so that it's always my brand. All my blog thumbnails and stuff look the same, and they look like this. So when we go back to the blog, you'll see that all my podcasts look the same. So I put the guest picture in there, the title and things, and then all of my blog posts are different. These other ones are shows. The ones that don't match are shows that I'm on. But you can kind of see as we go through, okay, that's a blog. That's Mike on a different show. That's a blog. That's Mike on a different show. That's a podcast. And I keep the branding consistent as I go through. And I think that's really powerful. Here's another blog with the same format. Any questions on that part so far? How I got there?
No.
Great. So now we're going to talk about the other stuff. So what I really like to do is going back to the blog post. Can you write an email to my newsletter list announcing the blog? I want it to include a TDLR version of the top takeaways and a call to action to read the full blog on the website.
What's TD?
That's too long, didn't read, which is great for emails. And if you're writing to executives and stuff, it actually writes in TDLR. So I would probably just take that away and just say, hey, here's the top takeaways. But here's the top 5 things you need to know if you don't have time to read this, which is really great for blog posts, really great for executive emails, really great for email marketing.
Wall Street Journal started doing on their website recently.
I love it a lot. I also like to explain it like I'm 5 is another kind of shorthand for ChatGPT, which just says, let's try it and see what happens. Will you rewrite that email, but explain it to me like I'm 5 years old? And so I can use this as the example, but I can also say, rewrite this for a commercial real estate broker, or rewrite this for a small business marketer. And here, I don't know, it seems like it didn't really write it to a 5-year-old, but AI is kind of like a robot helper. It can move really fast and write a lot of words and do cool tricks. But here's the problem. Robots don't build friendships. People do. Hey, that's actually pretty good marketing for an adult, to be honest with you. So I do like some of these, even though it didn't quite go down to a 5-year-old level because it's shouting out ChatGPT and Gamma and stuff. It did actually make the email better. I think it's more human and more cool this way. So obviously I can copy and paste this into HubSpot, MailChimp, whatever I'm using for email. I usually use the same image that I generated. So if I want to go back and put an image in the email, I'll use this one that we had saved and go on from here. Usually it's a couple of LinkedIn posts. So I'll say, break the main concepts of the blog into 3 different LinkedIn posts for a series of posts for Mike Montague about this blog, and include a call to action to read the whole story. So now that I have this longer piece, I can start repurposing it into a 3-part LinkedIn series. And it knows, because I've also taught it, that I want to start with a hook. I want to have a body information, and I want a call to action at the end. And your ChatGPT might not get the same results the first time, but because I do this on a regular basis, and I've said, like, look, LinkedIn needs a strong hook that's 3 lines or less. I want the body to be the TDLR version of the takeaways, and I want a call to action that has the link. So here's speed versus trust. There's Iron Man versus Terminator. There's shrink before you grow, which is anyone, which is most people use AI the wrong way. That's a great hook for a post. And now I can share these.
You've got email, you got 1 email, some LinkedIn posts. Obviously, you could do what you're doing here and say 5 emails or 15 LinkedIn posts for even more content.
Yeah, so let's do one more, which is one of my favorites, is a LinkedIn carousel. Can you go back to the LinkedIn the blog post and create an outline for a LinkedIn carousel? that I could insert into Gamma to build the PDF. So you can see Whisper deleted most of my stumble there, but not that one. So now this is one of the coolest tools. If you haven't seen Gamma, I mentioned before, it's awesome for images, but you can create by pasting in a plain text. You can try a one-line prompt, or you can import an existing document, presentation, PowerPoint you already have, and it will make it like a magic wand, like you would expect AI to be able to do. So I have this outline for a LinkedIn carousel, and it's going to be 9 slides. I copy this over here into Gamma. I would say I want to make a social media. Actually, I'm going to use a document because social is a little too small. And I want it to be a PDF that's letter size. And I want to generate it from this outline. And now it'll ask me a couple of questions about this and let me do it. So I want minimal words because it's going to be a LinkedIn carousel. This is who I'm writing for: marketing leaders, CMOs, and other executives. I want it to be warm, approachable, and I want to apply my Avenue 9 branding to it. And for images, I am going to try the ChatGPT image this time. I can also say I want specific things like a teal color palette. I'm going to do teal and black because those are my brand colors. And I got the 9 slides laid out, and then click generate. And this is the AI magic that I absolutely love. It's going to write this whole thing for me and generate the images that I can just export to a PDF and put on LinkedIn. So while it's writing there, we can go back and watch it kind of generate the background images, layouts, and styles.
Wow. Yeah.
Once they're all created, all these slides are created and laid out, I can go back in and I can edit any of them. I can have AI try again and rewrite any of them, but it's really just filling in my top steps in all these pictures. So check out, here's my Iron Man background now, but the title is way too small. Sure. So just go up here and, hey, I want this, and maybe I want to add a couple of things like the contributors, put my name on there and stuff. But I don't like this layout. I want it to be a not full bleed card. I want it to be like that. And that is a little too faded. I want to see more of the Iron Man, and I want it to align bottom so I can read it. That to me looks way better than what we started with, right?
Yep.
So
that's amazing.
We're doing it pretty fast, but same thing on these. I didn't like that slide. Sure. I'm going to put the image over here and just drag it and then delete where that was. And now all of a sudden I got this AI, fast versus slow. That's a cool graphic for that. I could also change the layout if I want to put this one on top. Is probably what I would do. And I can drag this and make it bigger too. So let me do that.
I think we're good on
yeah. You can see exactly how we're doing it. But some of these slide layouts are going to be really cool. And I think this could be a custom presentation. So if you got to speak in front of a chamber event or in front of your company, or you've got a client pitch, what I do a lot is take the recording in Zoom when I'm in a sales meeting with a prospect, upload that and say, hey, take my existing sales presentation and customize it for this client based on what they said in the sales interview. And it'll rewrite the whole presentation and rebuild it for me. So the same example works for all kinds of things, anything that we want to make. So I guess the last question here, Joe, is like, we got to decide then what we want to make and what makes a good marketing plan. Because once we have this context built out, we can make anything. So what should we make? How much? When should we post? I kind of think.
And we, just as a time check, we have just a couple more minutes. So you've given us the structure of everything and shown us how to do it. Is there one final thing to close the loop on this that you think we should know?
Yeah, I think, the big thing is looking at what your content marketing schedule is. So if you're a marketer, you probably already know. If you're not, think about, how can I do a blog post a week, a social media post a day? How can I make things that are boring with text have more images? How can I make things that are video, take the transcript from that and repurpose it, and use this to turn one thing you have into 9 other items. So that month's worth of marketing really comes from a weekly email, a weekly blog post, daily social media posts, and then anything else that you do to build out your content marketing plan. Make sense?
Yes, and I think one big takeaway for me, there are many, but one was the iterative process that you took to building this out versus just uploading something and say, make a month's worth of content for me. You really were intentional about educating along the way, which will then have a better product versus something that people look at and know this a robot made this. Why am I even reading this? They didn't spend any time creating this. They just put some
Right.
lazy prompt in. So I think the more AI becomes prevalent, the more people are going to pick up on that, and the more important doing the process the way you just showed us is going to stand out and be expected from people. There will be a lazy way to do AI, and then the way that actually adds value.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the other thing that a lot of people miss there in what you were saying is you can argue with it. If it creates something that's bad,
Go back and
just go
forth.
back and redirect it. Treat it like an intern or employee and say, nope, that was my fault. I didn't give you enough context. Ask me 5 questions about what I want you to make in order to do your best work and get the output. Or
Mike,
be 90% sure we're gonna have a great piece when we make it.
how can the best ever listeners learn more about what you're doing?
Well, the good news is I'm in internet marketing, so I'm not very hard to find. If you type Mike Montague or Avenue 9 into whatever app or search you want, you'll find me. But I think the Human First AI Marketing Podcast is a good place to start since you're listening or watching a podcast right now. Type Human First AI Marketing and check out that show. It's really cool.
Thanks for being on the show. Hope you have the best ever day and talk to you again soon.